Hey everybody, welcome to Teal Tinted Glasses episode 17. Today we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, some NHL nonsense. We're going to talk about some stupid team from Anaheim. It's going to be fine, I think. Obviously, it's a Friday night, and you could pick a bajillion places to be, and you chose to be here with us, and we appreciate that. We didn't really want to go do our normal do our normal day, or because of our normal days were like game days, and obviously with the games being in San Jose, we didn't want to basically go on live and be like, oh, everyone's at the game. Well, yay for us. But here we are, and with me tonight is Mr. Hockey Jerk.
So Brendan Dillon wore an A in the preseason game last night, so I have to think that means they're taking the A off of Thornton, obviously, right?
Well, Marlowe had an A, and he is now gone.
That is true.
Brendan Dillon, alternate captain. How does that make you feel?
Letter to all hockey fans. Preseason letters don't matter.
Wait. You mean Jacob Middleton is not the new captain of the San Jose Sharks?
I'm sorry to inform you that he is not. I'm sorry.
Is he the captain of the Barracuda now?
I mean, it remains to be seen. I feel like they were kind of grooming, a Dan Kelly for that role.
Is Dan Kelly still around?
No.
I was going to say, I didn't think so, but I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. I don't know. So you heard it here first. Jacob Middleton, captain of the Barracuda.
Foreseen.
Foreseen.
As our friend Zach would say.
Yes. Have you taken in any of the preseason games so far?
I got to see some tweets and some GIFs of the games. I caught a bit of they were streaming it last night. Saw a little bit of that.
Oh, I didn't see the stream. I'm angry.
It was weird. Like, it was different. Like, they had somebody else doing PA. It was very weird.
Oh.
But I saw parts of that. But I mean, all in all, I thought the Sharks, in the limited spots I did see, I thought the Sharks looked good.
I mean, they seem to be doing well. They've won games, which is always
right.
Good.
When the Sharks do good, it's good.
That's right. Yep.
But you put up back-to-back 5 spots. I mean, it's obviously going to create some positive feelings.
I feel like all our scoring problems are solved.
Oh, I mean, obviously, you just need. This is the key to the power play: is you put Brandon Bollig at the front of the net,
right?
And obviously, he's the best player out there. So Joe Thornton's going to be wanting to get the puck to him. It's
fair,
but I mean, I don't know. I'm not a coach, but I think Brandon Bollig, key addition.
Ooh.
Wow. He's going to replace Marlowe's 27 goals.
Wow, you heard it here first. TGG5. Yeah, I obviously out here I can't. I didn't see any streams, so I was kind of like whatever. I kind of just have the little game day thingy on NHL.com that it just tells me when someone scores and tells me what's going on. Like, this person blocked a shot. This person took a shot. Calvin Pickard made a save. And so I kind of watch that with one eye and kind of just do whatever and just kind of glance back and forth at it. So I've been keeping track of all the excellent scoring. Kevin Labanc at least appears to be dialed in, which is going to be interesting because obviously I have my big Labanc isn't making the team out of camp this year, and he's doing his best to prove me wrong. So good on him, I guess.
Yeah, I'm still right there with you. I think Labanc is destined for the Barracuda. I think he's going to be a huge part of the Barracuda, but I will say it is encouraging to see that, early on he's kind of getting things, in the right direction. I know a lot of the things that we, went on and on about was, consistency and trying to do too much. And at least in the limited viewings that I've seen in this preseason, it seems like he's matured and he's, sort of kind of realizing what he needs to do in order to get back on track and kind of avoid hitting that wall again. And so it's really encouraging to see. And I mean, I know it's only been 2 preseason games, but
Right.
a majority of the roster both nights were young guys, you know. O'Regan was on the top line with Joe Pavelski and Yannick Hansen. I mean, you don't just end up there by accident, you know. And
No.
I thought it was really encouraging that in these 2 games that were won by a large margin, you know, a lot of it was because of the more unknown guys. I mean, yes, Hansen and Pavelski and Bodker and Hurdle all scored, but you also had O'Regan and LeBanc and, you know, Bolig scoring, and Sandberg had a really nice goal as well. So it's nice to see, you know, the committee as a whole chipping in as opposed to the same handful of guys.
Right. Obviously, one of the big things that so far is that Mr. Joe Thornton hasn't skated up yet. And I feel like this really, I don't want to worry about this. I mean, you do in the back of your mind because of the surgery, but then there's the part of me that says, Joe Thornton's like 37. He's not going to play, you know, until one of the last games.
Well, and that's the
even
thing.
If he was healthy, like even if he was healthy, he's probably not playing until, you know, one of the last games.
Exactly. And I mean, if you ask me, like if I'm DeBoer, you know, I'm saying to Thornton, like, if you want to play, we'll put you in, but like you're a hell of a player and you obviously belong in this league, so you don't have to play if you don't want to
prove. Right. Yeah,
exactly. It's not like he needs to show, you know, he's not on a tryout, he's not a young guy, you know, he's established. You know what you get with Joe Thornton.
Yeah, I mean, he's you know, he's making $8 million. I think his position on the team's pretty locked in.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, Pavelski didn't play in that first game, so maybe Middleton is getting the C.
That's true, man. Oh man, Jacob Middleton, captain of the San Jose Sharks. I read an article and it kind of surprised me because I feel like Dell being the backup should be a foregone conclusion at this point.
Right.
But it kind of was like, oh, Dell needs to secure a spot. Like, is there really? I don't know, because I'm way over here and I haven't really been online as much as I normally have been, and I apologize for that. But is that like really? Is this really a talking point? Like, do people feel like Grosnick really has a chance to steal Dell's job?
I mean, I personally don't believe so. I had read tweets prior to Tuesday's game, and the impression that I got was that Dell and Grosnick were going to split the game. But if, you know, again, my memory in kind of catching up on the night's events are, you know, if my memory serves correctly, I believe Dell played the whole game. And I think it's a matter of wanting to, you know, get him some more time, and that makes sense. But I honestly don't think he really has anything to prove. I mean, obviously, you know, not that him and Joe Thornton are of the same status, but in terms of what they bring to the team, I think Dell is a lock for the backup position, considering the limited starts that he had last year. He was really good. And then so far, you know, again, it's preseason, so take it with a grain of salt. But him and Jones have each started one game, you know, and so it's curious to see how many more starts Dell gets. Whether he starts whenever the next preseason game is, I don't recall. But I don't know. I personally think he's locked for the backup job. I think if Grosnick is coming up at all, it's for injury relief more than anything.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I mean, it's just like, how many times does Aaron Dell have to steal Grosnick's job? Like, I don't know. I just feel like he's proven like over and over again that he's the better goalie between the two. I feel like if you put Aaron Dell on that team last year, I think, I'm not trying to take anything away from Troy Grosnick, who had a hell of a season last year, but I don't feel like on that team, Dell would have been significantly different.
No, not at all.
So I don't know. I mean, that's just my, yeah, that's my thoughts. We'll probably have notes here somewhere. So the big NHL kerfluffle right now, I like the word kerfluffle. The NHL is apparently looking into the Leafs and the Blackhawks over their use of the long-term injured reserve. For those that don't know, and even I know this, and I haven't really been online. So obviously, if you don't know, then I don't know how to help you. Joffrey Lupul basically went on Instagram and said, "Hey, I'm snowboarding. I'm perfectly healthy." And the Leafs are like, "No, you're on the LTIR, man. Like, we don't want you in your contract because it's too much, and we don't really have a spot for you on this team anymore." And he kind of, he dialed that back right away, right? He took the tweet down. He didn't want to be, he's a good old hockey guy, doesn't want to be a distraction, but I can understand his frustration if he feels like he's healthy enough to play. And I get it, especially from like Leaf fans are like, well, to hell with that guy. Like, where does he get off? But I mean, like, this is his livelihood, right? I mean, yes, you could sit at home and collect your money anyway, and I get that. But if you're a player, you want to play, and I don't fault him for that. I don't think that players should just sit at home and collect money just because, I mean, it's obvious cap circumvention. Like, and then Marian Hossa obviously comes up, has the skin issue that we talked about previously. The coincidence, of course, of that is his cap hit is huge, but his actual earnings is $1 million a year because he's in those $1 million years that brought the cap hit down when you could finagle the salary cap. So I guess teams have complained to the NHL, and so the NHL is looking into that. The NHL was looking into Lupul, not because teams complained, just because they will obviously want to know. The interesting thing here, and I'll let you jump in after this, is that when this happens, these are team doctors. They're obviously employed by the team. And I feel like for stuff like this, especially when it comes to like these long-term injured reserves, like these guys that just sit out like for season after season, like, shouldn't that be independently? Shouldn't the NHL not just automatically be independently verifying these things?
It's a tricky situation because with a lot of these injuries, there really is, okay, will they be able to play at some point? Are they done, kind of thing? It's hard. It's hard to know, in each individual situation. And I think that's kind of where Nathan Horton was a few years ago, where it's like, yes, I could have this surgery to fix it, but it might get complicated, or I can just wait, but I might never get better. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like it would, benefit the NHL to kind of create some kind of, mutual out clause for career-ending injuries like this. But at the same time, you signed the contract, you kind of have to honor it. And not only that, but like you said, there's a lot of cap circumventing going on, whether they claim it as is or not. I think the Hossa one, I mean, Hossa released a statement. The team did. I fully buy what Hossa is selling. I really think he can't play. And that's kind of why I was confused when they were saying Chicago was circumventing the cap, because it's like he's got a legitimate ailment going on. Like, there's literally nothing he can do, versus Lupul. I mean, myself personally, and I may just be uninitiated to this, but I actually don't know what is ailing him.
You know what? That's a great question. Probably something I should have figured out before. I mean, Lupul's made of glass. Let's be honest here.
This is very true.
Like, Lupul is absolutely made of glass. I just feel like, though, like, if this isn't Toronto, do they like if this was Carolina, does Carolina get away with this?
I don't know. I think the whole situation was exacerbated just because of the Instagram post, and just because it is Toronto. Like, I feel like if it was any other team, it's like, okay, that guy's hurt and he can't play, which is, you see, Nathan Horton, David Clarkson, Chris Pronger.
But these guys aren't snowboarding.
That's right. But I'm saying, because it's Toronto, there's a couple things to consider. Toronto's got the hot media market, so more eyes on the situation, more opinions on the situation. And not to insinuate any wrongdoings or anything, but Toronto is known for having a lot of money in the bank.
Yep.
And there could be some kind of, we'll call them incentive payments going on. I mean, again, not to insinuate anything, but you never really know with places like Toronto, how intense things actually are there. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's kind of the point I think I was trying to make. Like, if this is like a team like Carolina, right? Like, obviously it's Leafs media, so you're gonna get like a lot of varied opinions, right? And it kind of goes back to our last couple of shows, I think 2 shows ago, when we talked about the Senators pulling seats out of their arena. Where if this is a Florida or a Carolina, does instead of this kind of mixed whatever, like, isn't it just unanimously like, wow, these guys are scumbags and they're circumventing the cap and something has to be done, and everyone steps on their high horse.
Right.
Like, that's what I wonder. I think I wonder if, like, not even just from a league perspective, because I don't think that the league is going to purposely be like, yeah, Toronto completely blatantly circumvent the cap, and we're totally cool with that. We don't mind looking like idiots as long as it's our billion-dollar team doing it. But I just feel like if this wasn't the Leafs, like, it would just be unanimously like everyone that has a microphone, including myself, maybe, would get on and be like, oh, how's this team getting away with this nonsense, blah 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 blah, even though I'm saying that now.
Right. Yeah, especially like, I don't know, Toronto is such a weird animal, because I feel like sometimes, like, situations like this, they can kind of be a little nefarious and nobody even looks twice at it. But then at the same time, a guy like, not to drag up any stories or anything, but, like, a guy like Phil Kessel, who works his ass off, is constantly torn down by them for whatever reason. And it's like, they choose a lot of interesting things to talk about, and the other things are just kind of like, okay, we won't talk about it. So I don't know. And it's kind of a curious element to an even curiouser situation, because there's so much talk about, Robidas Island.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know Stefan Robidas, I think he broke his leg 2 years ago.
Right.
But even beyond that, I don't know what's wrong with him.
Nothing.
He
took the money.
That's the thing. Exactly. Same thing with Joffrey Lupul. I believe it is concussions that is ailing him, but I don't know for certain.
Right.
And we've seen this before with Toronto, whether it's, LTIR or, buyouts. Like, Toronto is very quick to try and get out from large contracts that they signed.
Oh, sure. I mean, they could always dump Lupul's contract on someone else tomorrow, and that would be that. I guess it just makes me wonder, though, because, like, if a player's, like, strong enough, because I feel like Raffi Torres played on a zombie leg and everyone was fine with this. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, obviously it didn't work out. Like, he couldn't get back up to NHL speed, but I mean, God, he tried. I mean, Raffi Torres, granted, wasn't making, I think $5-6 million against the cap, and that definitely helps things. But it just seems weird to me, like, just how he fails a medical and then zombie leg gets to play until he decides he can't. Like, I don't. Yeah. I think that's why I think there just needs to be, like, this independent thing where, like, the NHL should have doctors that be like, okay, look at, this is legit and this isn't. Because I feel like when, obviously, like, you want to trust the team doctors, but when stuff like this happens, then what do you do, right? You need independent verification, I think, especially for a large contract. Like, I feel like these things should automatically be independently verified, because it just makes for a level playing field. And if a team has to squirm under the cap, then let them squirm under the cap. That's what the cap is there for. And fans in Toronto may not like that, and I get that. But, like, and maybe if this was, a San Jose Shark, maybe I don't like the situation anymore from a fan perspective, obviously. But I don't know. I mean, I get the disappointment from Toronto fans about it, but at the same time, it's just like, those are the rules. Like, you're not above them just because you're Toronto.
Well, exactly. And I mean, even if Lupul was healthy enough to play, there's no guarantee that he would be healthy all year.
No, he might, shatter within a game. You never know.
And you brought up a good point that I wanted to mention. You see how, teams have their own concussion spotters.
Yeah.
But then the league also has their own concussion spotters. And I almost wonder if the NHL should follow this trend, with doctors like this. Like, okay, you have the team doctor, obviously, but maybe, maybe the NHL has their own team of doctors. Maybe the PA has their own team of doctors. Maybe you dig out the phone book and look for a doctor in some specialty. I don't know, like you're beneficial if you get, multiple opinions from multiple biases. And I think, like, again, not to insinuate anything nefarious, but if it's your team doctor, I mean, there's no way to know how. I can try to think of how to phrase this without sounding bad, but just like, it could be like, oh yeah, you're my guy, you're fine, it's cool, or vice versa. I don't like this guy, so I'm not going to clear him. I think difference of opinion, and then obviously doctors who are part of different organizations should have a say. I think it needs to be a more in-depth process, especially with, as I've said, how many guys who've had to be on LTIR, because of career-ending injuries in the last, decade.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel like, especially like Vince G in the chat, it looks shady. It looks shady for the Hawks because the Hawks are in cap hell. I feel like this Hossa thing, like there's precedent for it. Like, this is not the first player who's had to have this problem. But at the, but I still feel like it looks shady when that, in a year, I think you have Austin Matthews coming up, Mitch Marner coming up. You have all these guys that are going to need paychecks, and Lupul's still signed for, I believe, another couple of years. Like, he's a super wrench in the machine right now.
I believe this is his last year under contract.
Let me go check as I just make up things as I go along. Let's find out. All right. Toronto, where are you? Near the top, of course. The top. $4 million in Joffrey Lupul. You're right. Last year.
Okay, yeah. And see, that's what that's what confuses me even more is like he's a pending UFA. So why, buy it out, or just don't make it this big whole thing. Just, put him on LTIR and have that be the end of it. Or, buy him out. I mean, it doesn't have to be this big production. Like, if it was, you look at Nathan Horton, who's also on LTIR and's got 3 years left, you're stuck. There's nothing you can do. But like, Lupul's got 1 year left, just buy it out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems suspicious, and maybe Lupul doesn't get another deal, and I don't know. It looks bad, and I feel like the NHL, especially when it's like one of your flagship, basically your flagship team, right? I mean, this is the most, using the Forbes numbers, this is the second I think they're the second most, which I don't understand how the Rangers would be worth more than the Maple Leafs, to be completely honest. But if you go by the Forbes numbers, they're the number 2 team. And in terms of value, I don't understand how the Rangers would be worth more, but that's neither here nor there. It's a flagship market for them. It's the biggest market in hockey, aside from maybe Montreal.
Well, and, to kind of stick on that same topic, you look at Simone Dupre even. I mean, Simone Dupre signed, he signed the big extension with the Ducks and then got hurt and was, supposedly never going to play again. Right. So the Ducks bought him out of his long-term contract, and then he turns around and signs with Bratislava in the KHL. So now all of a sudden he doesn't have a career-ending injury. Well,
maybe career-ending injury in the NHL and KHL differ, just like drug testing in the KHL and NHL differs.
Right. I mean, whatever keeps the paper bag full, but like, it's just very curious how it's this big ordeal where it's like, we're going to buy you out, you're not ever going to be healthy again, and then, before the first buyout check is even in the mail, he's turning around and signing with another team.
I don't know. I like the paper bag.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, it's you got to do whatever you can to keep that paper bag full, and playing under the risk of getting smoked in the neutral zone. I mean, it's like, hey,
good times.
You Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's
hockey.
Hey, yeah, right. That's a man's sport. Just rub some dirt in it and keep on trucking.
Oh man, poor NHL, man. Yeah, the chat's kind of, and we're kind of like light on content, so I'm gonna jump into the chat here. And there's this big thing going on with obviously impending Armageddon. So I thought we could put a little more time, since there's so much chat about it there's so much talk about it in the chat tonight. And I don't want to depress anybody. Like, I feel like people are going to be like turning off the podcast. And I'm like, oh God, they're going to talk about lockout. I'm done. I can't deal. But we're going to do it. So forewarning, trigger warning, whatever. We're going to talk about potential lockout. You've been warned. How confident are you that we are definitely heading for another lockout? Scale of 1 to 10. 10 being definitely, 1 being no way, Ian, you're dumb.
I'm gonna say 6.
Ooh, I'm going.
And here's why.
Okay. I want to hear. No, here. So, let's go. Yeah, go ahead.
So, and we're gonna go back into history a little bit here.
Okay.
So, you go back to the 2012 lockout, and the NHLPA released a statement saying, if we're actively negotiating, we'll play under the old CBA.
Right.
They were willing to be flexible with the league and work with the league. And the NHL said, sorry, this deal that we contributed 50% to is not to our liking. Shocker.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. So then they fight about it for half a year. And I feel like with this most recent CBA, the NHL got a lot of what they wanted.
Right.
And if you're asking me this question 6 months ago, I'm honestly probably saying a number lower than 5, just because of, the NHL getting what they wanted and the PA historically being flexible on these kinds of things.
Well, once the paycheck stop, then
right, you start to hit the panic button a little bit.
Yeah.
But then you fast forward a little bit, and here come the Olympics, and all of a sudden the PA is up in arms, and you have players directly adding the NHL saying, oh, look what we're missing out on. So I honestly, I could see a strike before I see a lockout. Just because I feel like the NHL is where they want to be with the current agreement, and I think the players have a bone to pick more than anything.
Yeah, and the reason I went so high at 8 is because I feel like for the players, they're going to want to do something about escrow.
Right.
Because really, this is something where the players on the bottom get pinched really, really hard, and then the players on the top, the ones making all the money, like Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, for example, are 2 great examples of this. They have all their money in signing bonus rather than salary. So that signing bonus doesn't get touched by escrow. So it's the bulk of the players that are suffering with escrow, while the guys on the top are fine. And I think that there's going to be kind of a revolt there. The other thing that would be very, very concerning would be if Chris Chelios gets back involved with the union. Especially if he would replace Donald Fuhr at some point, then for sure it's a lockout, because after the original CBA with the cap came in, Chris Chelios made no bones about it that it was the worst. It was the worst CBA in all of sports, and he's never been pro cap. And I think the cap's here to stay. Like, you're never gonna get rid of the cap. Like, you just can't undo that box. Like, the NHL's never going back to a non-cap system. That's just reality. But I feel like, if Chris Chelios, and there's rumors that, he could be more involved by the time the next CBA rolls around, that I would find that to be very concerning. The other thing I have a concern is I don't trust the NHL either. I think that they're going to want more. They always want more. They had a 50-50 split in the first CBA. then it went 40-60 or something like that. I wouldn't surprise me if they, if they again try to get a bigger piece of that pie. With the, especially with the Canadian dollar not doing as well as it was during the other CBAs. And I think that concerns me a little bit, that they'll just take more and they'll just lock them out until they get what they want, because it's worked the last 2 lockouts. But yeah, I feel like, escrow is going to be a huge sticking point next negotiations, I think, because I think this is one situation where the guys on the bottom might actually win. Win out.
It's a tough situation because there's so much going on. And I mean, like, on one hand, can you really fault the top players, for wanting to cash in on really good seasons? But at the same time, you're right,
they're not paying their fair share, though.
Exactly. It's, like you said, the guys at the bottom, the guys who are making, league minimum deals and around there, they have to
local taxes, you're paying escrow. Like, whereas, signing bonuses, I believe, are still taxed, but there's no escrow on a signing bonus. Whereas, like, so if you're a player making 1.1 million, for example, you're paying local taxes. And I look at, you're still taking home, I'm sure, a fair bit of money, and I'm not weeping for them, but I don't know, man. I feel like the majority of players are really unhappy with escrow. And there's not enough of the top end, because usually everything's about the top, right? Because the belief in sports is always that the top brings up the bottom,
right?
Which is what happened the one year where they raised the escrow really high because they thought guys like Steven Stamkos were going to just absolutely cash in and raise the bar for everyone else, and it didn't happen because he took a pretty reasonable deal. It was all signing bonus money, but it was cap hit wise, it was a reasonable deal. It didn't really do much to elevate. Now that this Connor McDavid contract went out, I think that is finally bringing the tide up a little bit. And I don't know, I feel like the NHL's, they're always going to, I feel like every lockout we have like a cap reduction, and then there's like, your freebie buyouts and whatnot. I don't know. I just,
So does Bodker get bought out with the next compliance buyout? Your thoughts?
If he's still on the team and there's a compliance buyout, I wouldn't be shocked. Unless he, if all things stay the way they are, then he'd absolutely get bought out. And I think anyway.
And Vince G brings up a really good point too, saying the KHL would love a lockout so much. You're absolutely correct, because we've seen in the past, Alex Ovechkin has gone to the KHL. The Evgeny Malkin's KHL team still tweets about him. This day. I know that because Evgeny Malkin's KHL team is my KHL team. So they still, like, if there's a lockout, that's Evgeny Malkin, I guarantee you, is the first to go. And,
Ovechkin too.
Ovechkin, yes. And St. Petersburg, over the summer, they acquired Evgeny Kuznetsov's rights. He just signed which is obviously lockout, lockout potential. Yes, he signed a long-term deal in Washington and is staying there for all 8 of those years.
Oh, for sure. But
you get a half season with Evgeny. I'm not a Penguins fan. You get a half season of Evgeny Kuznetsov, who's a really good Russian hockey player, on the best Russian hockey team. Why not?
No,
and
I agree.
I think over these next 2-3 years, however long it is until the potential lockout,
2020.
Yeah, I keep an eye. These next 3 years, you're probably going to see a lot of KHL teams acquiring the rights to players who are in the NHL.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. So I don't know. I feel like we're in trouble just because, like, I feel like escrow is a huge sticking point, and I feel like that's something the players are going to fight over, and the owners are the owners. Yeah, I thought the last lockout was completely unnecessary on their part. And I know, like, it's weird, especially up here. Like, man, no, everyone hates the players. Like, it's like always like, oh no, the players, man, the players. They should just, be happy they're playing hockey and take whatever they get. And it's like, no, they shouldn't. And I felt like this lockout was this last lockout. The first lockout, there's a lot of blame to go around. This last lockout was completely on the owners. It wasn't necessary.
Well, and that goes to a point I made earlier. The PA was willing to play under the expired deal.
Mm-hmm.
And the league was like, oh, no, we don't like revenue. Get that crap out of here.
No, we want more. Well, they like revenue. They just wanted more of it. They wanted a bigger piece of the pie.
And
I feel like that's going to be the case again.
And it's just frustrating. I mean, obviously, as a fan, it's frustrating because no matter who is at fault, it's the fan who ultimately pays the price.
Absolutely.
And it's just amazing that we haven't, I say we, the NHL and the NHLPA haven't learned the lesson of the past. I mean, I remember when the 2012 lockout ended, it was a big story where it was like the NHL lost X amount of dollars in revenue because they weren't playing any games. And it's like, logic would tell you to smarten up and prevent that from happening again. But then you get a piece of the pie and you want the rest of it, and you get greedy, Yeah. You get away with something once, and what's that?
I said, Rob in the chat saying that they should decertify the union. They are never going to decertify the union. Before they had a union, former players were dying in boxcars because they had no money after their playing games or their playing days were over, and they didn't get paid nearly a portion of what the owners were making. They're never going back to that. It would never happen. You can't not have a union in professional sports these days. They'd get destroyed. You think they think they have it bad now? Decertify the union and find out how quickly it becomes so much worse for them from their perspective.
Something else that, kind of, it's not so much of an important key to the story, but a very interesting key. What happens to the Stanley Cup if there's a full season lockout? Because, the Stanley Cup is not owned by the NHL. And so an agreement that came out of the 2005 lockout was if an NHL season is postponed or canceled, a different league can play for the Stanley Cup.
I don't think it would ever. I know, and I know it belongs to the Hall of Fame. It doesn't belong to the NHL. I have a hard time seeing. I know, like, they can do it. I just feel like, I don't know. Even though someone could do it, I feel like it's so wrong.
Oh, I mean, absolutely, it is so wrong. But, and I mean, hypothetically, you get a team in another league, let's say the AHL or the KHL or somebody else,
mm-hmm.
Who wants to be a trendsetter or, have some kind of change going on, and all of a sudden, literally the trophy the NHL competes for is now up in, there's a lot of questions about it because of the lockout or a strike.
Yeah. I don't know. The Cup, just leave it in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I agree with you. Leave it in the Hall of Fame. But that's the thing is, a lockout, it creates so many questions beyond when are we going to play again. There's way too many wrinkles to it.
Right. Yeah. No, it's just, I don't even know. New arena in Seattle. What do you think?
I think the NHL is going to be at 32 teams within the next 5 years.
Nonsense in Calgary.
I think it's just, for lack of a better phrase, they're showing just how big their what is.
Yeah.
They're saying, oh, we were going to throw all this money down, and the city doesn't care about your sports team. How does that make you feel? Kind of thing.
It's a lot of posturing.
It is a lot of posturing. Yeah, it's a lot of. It's a lot of, you're not going to help me out. Fine, I'm going to make you look bad. Basically, yeah. I think they're going to come around, and I think they'll get a new arena.
Yeah, they'll get a new arena. It might take a new city council. I feel like, I mean, I see like the thing like the where each party paid a third, like they got a third from the province, a third from the city, a third from the team. Like I don't know what the problem is there. Like I feel like there's a lot of benefits that the team gets out of it, like you know, that the city has to be on the hook for. Like obviously you want to make it so that people can get to your games. Like that's, you know, that's city taxes that go to that, you know, public transit, stuff like that. Like I feel like, I don't know, I feel like teams now are just too greedy, and they shouldn't, I don't know, they take far too much public money for arenas that generally the team ultimately benefits from more than anyone else. Like it bothers me. Well, the Coyotes are not going to Seattle.
No, they're not.
They'll expand.
If the Coyotes haven't left Arizona by this point, then they're never leaving.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
They'll find something.
The Coyotes went bankrupt in 2009, and the NHL bailed them out. There's no going back from that.
Worst case scenario, maybe if Houston's going to be this NHL market that they think it could potentially be, maybe the Coyotes go to Houston.
I mean,
they're not going to go to a market. They're not going to Seattle. The NHL is not going to have a relocation fee, which is going to be half of the $500 million or whatever it's going to be this time around, to put a brand new team in Seattle. They're not walking away from that money. They're not dumb. And they have to keep them in the West. So Houston? Kansas City? I don't know.
Yeah. And I don't understand why the Coyotes can't, you know, the Phoenix has a basketball team.
Yeah, they do.
They would be smart to work out some kind of deal with them, at least temporarily. I mean,
the basketball team has no interest in sharing the arena with them is the problem.
Well, I mean, that doesn't come as a surprise, but
no,
the bottom line is the Coyotes are not moving. And
yeah, I agree.
If the Coyotes relocate, then I will give somebody the login for my Twitter account. How's that?
Patrick Marleau scored a goal in the preseason, so therefore Doug Wilson wrong.
Yeah, obviously the world is ending. We should have just given him the $18.75 million
of cap space that we had.
Yeah, of course. You know, and
future head of Connor McDavid.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, this one preseason game, Toronto's winning the Stanley Cup all 3 of those years. There's no doubt.
Right.
I will say that it was a nice goal.
It was a nice goal. I thought so.
It's nice to see. I mean, he is Mr. Shark. And, you know, that's for a lot of people, that's going to take a lot of getting used to. But
for sure.
At the end of the day, you know, players are like us. They're people. They're going to do what's in their. They're going to do what's in their best interest. You know, if they can get more money here, they're going to do that. If they can have a more comfortable living situation, I'm not convinced that, you know, his gripes with the organization back from the Stanley Cup year have gone away. You know, there's so many things that it could be. And I mean, all you can do is just cross your fingers that he, you know, God willing,
to do well.
Doesn't
I don't have an issue. Like, I want Marleau to do well. Like, I'm not angry at him.
The real question is, how long into his 3-year deal does he wind up with some mystery injury because he's on Toronto?
Ooh, Robidoux Island's a coming.
Does he, like, you know, fall down a flight of stairs or, you know, slip on a banana peel or something? Like,
yeah, I don't know. Former Sharks associate coach and director of player development, Larry Robinson, joined the Blues front office, and in an interesting tweet, he tweeted out that nice to be on a team that's excited to have me, or something along those lines, which I thought was interesting. Not just because like it could be a dig at the Sharks, which it could be, but I could have swore he had something locked up with Florida, the Panthers.
Yeah, I thought he did too. I think we even talked about it on a show like 6 months ago, or maybe a little less. But Yeah, the only thing I can think of is maybe he had something lined up, and then when Dale Talon came back into the fold as GM, maybe it fell through. I mean, that's really all I can think of.
Dale Talon does not like Stanley Cup winning defensemen developing players.
Obviously not.
See, and I don't, and this is going to get me in trouble, but I don't care because maybe I should be the hockey jerk. I don't really feel I just feel like Larry Robinson's impact on the Sharks, like I feel it was very minimal.
Agreed.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like minimal. Like I don't know. Like who got remarkably better with Larry Robinson there? Maybe Dylan, maybe.
I mean, an argument could be made for Justin Braun.
Yeah, Braun, maybe. Yeah, Braun.
And
I know some people are saying Burns, but he was pretty much dead set against. Like he was on the Burns as a forward train, if I remember correctly.
I was just gonna say, I'm fairly certain I'm pretty sure he even came out and said in the public, like, I don't know why Burns is playing defense because he's not a defenseman. I'm pretty sure he came out and said something to that extent. And
well, how do you like him now with his Norris Trophy, Mr. Larry Robinson, winner of 9,000 Stanley Cups?
But how many Norris trophies does he have?
How many players? That's a great question. He probably has a couple. He has to have a couple. He's Larry Robinson. Now I got to look this up. This is frustrating.
It's Teal Tinted Glasses on a Friday, so we're a little more.
This is the worst show ever. Like I don't think we've done a worse show. I like this is like the least prepared I think we've been to do a show in forever. All right, let's see awards.
Norris Trophy. Larry Robinson 1, Larry Robinson 2. I'm gonna say 2.
Twice. Yeah,
he won 2.
And a Conn Smythe. So maybe I'm just gonna shut up about Brent Burns and his Norris Trophy now. All right. There we have it.
Sleepy Mofo saying he said Burns was too reckless or something along those lines. That sounds about right.
Yeah. All of the Stanley Cup rings as he punches my face in as with his rings on all the knuckles.
Would have been nice if the Sharks could have beat the Penguins, then he would have had a ring for every finger.
That's true. Poor guy. I mean, look at Larry Robinson obviously has a very, very illustrious career, and I'm not trying to diminish what he did as a player. Like he did good work in New Jersey. I'm not sure that he really. I think it's fair to question how much impact he had in San Jose. That's just my opinion of it. I mean, I don't know if it was a dig at the Sharks because like I feel like he had something going on with the Panthers, and then maybe Dale Talon came. I mean, the Panthers are such a mess. They need to sort out their front office big time. And they're a mess. They need stability in their front office, and I don't know if Dale Talon can do that again. I'm completely not sure, but it seems like Dale Talon's driving the bus now, which is a good thing. We'll see what happens, I guess. So.
Yeah, it's kind of sad when you consider it wasn't long ago where the Panthers were.
They were the darling of the NHL.
Yeah, they were the darling of the NHL. They won their division. They had all this potential, and now they've literally, to borrow a phrase from Brian Burke, they're like an 18-wheeler going off a cliff.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. All right, I guess we should talk about the Anaheim Ducks. I don't want to, but we probably should because we're at the end of the season preview. We're at the end. We've made it. From here on, we have to actually find other things to talk about. And I don't know how we're going to manage when there's actual hockey games being played and actual storylines to discuss, I'm sure. I mean, we spun a bajillion hours on Joffrey Lupul and Marian Hossa, so I'm sure we'll be okay. Cheryl asking, do you think the Ducks will regret letting Theodore go? No, because they're so stacked on the blue line. It's stupid how many defensemen they have in the system. Like they're just, oh no, I lost Jay Theodore. I still have Sammy Vatanen. I still have Brandon Montour. I still have It's just like a embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you hate to lose a player of that quality, but like you said, when I think aside from Boschman and Bieksa and stuff like that, their oldest defenseman who actually makes an impact on the team, I believe, is Cam Fowler, who's like 25 or 26.
Right.
Like, you're set for a while.
Career season.
Cam
Fowler. I think that's going to be interesting to see. Okay, so coming in is Francois Beauchemin and Ryan Miller. Obviously, Ryan Miller in a backup role as, what's his name? Oh my God, John Gibson is the starter there. I think undisputed. I don't know if he's undisputed. Like, I feel like John Gibson. He's one of those guys who he kind of reminds me of Jake Allen in the sense that this is a guy that they've tried to hand the net to a bunch of times, and it's been with mixed results. Like, yeah, the Ducks won the division last year, but for a while they had to fight back into it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I feel like I don't know. I'm so torn on John Gibson because I feel like the first half of the last like 3 seasons, he's gotten better, and it's like, oh, okay, John Gibson finally coming alive, finally reaching that potential. And then, there was a time last season where he lost the net to Jonathan Bernier.
Yep.
I mean, it was a short amount of time, but it still happened. And this isn't your older brother's Anaheim Ducks. They don't have Frederik Andersen and Jonas Hiller and, God willing, Victor Fast to fall back on. John Gibson needs to establish some consistency, and I think Ryan Miller will help because
it's a good insurance policy. I think Miller.
Exactly. It is. I mean, he hasn't really played as well as he can pretty much since he was in Buffalo, but
he was in Vancouver.
Yeah, and before that he was in St. Louis. Right. So Ryan Miller's an interesting one. I feel like Ryan Miller is almost the same as like a Sergei Bobrovsky, where on their NHL team, they're okay, but then you get them with that international jersey on, and it's like, whoa.
What happened?
Lights out.
Yeah. Who's the goalie? Well, I mean, Bobrovsky's fine if he's healthy.
Yes, that's the...
I think Bobrovsky's great when he's healthy. When he's healthy, he's elite. The problem is kind of like, I feel like, to draw another parallel, like I feel like Bobrovsky and Ben Bishop are in the same boat, where the only reason Bobrovsky's elite again is because he was healthy last season while Ben Bishop wasn't, so suddenly Ben Bishop's not elite anymore.
Right.
Like, I feel like a healthy Ben Bishop is still an elite goalie, but it's the thing about being healthy that's the problem.
Yeah.
But now we're off topic, and we're not even talking about the Ducks anymore because that's how much we hate the Ducks. We hate them.
Well, I mean, the Ducks are one of my fake favorite teams. So I think you're speaking on your own there.
Okay, fine. You're right. I hate the Ducks personally. So out, obviously, Shea Theodore and Clayton Stoner are the only games that I could see that are out. Obviously, both expansion draft stuff. Not a huge loss. Obviously with the season coming into the season, they've got some pretty significant injuries to start out with that I think are that's a good talking point. Hampus Lindholm, Ryan Kessler, and Sammy Vatanen. No, Kessler's not the Kessler he used to be, but Kessler's still pretty damn good. Right. I think they're really gonna feel that loss. And then obviously like your defense, like the Ducks have one of the best defense cores in the league, and it's stupid young, which is just not even fair. I mean, except for when you sign Francis Beauchemin and, maybe pair him with BX, so maybe that's not so great. But like, other than Beauchemin and then obviously BX, I think BX is almost done. But like, I don't like the Beauchemin signing for that reason. Although now it kind of makes a little more sense when you realize you're still missing 2 of your top 4 defensemen, and dare I say, one defenseman.
Yeah, it's going to be rough sailing for a while with the Ducks, especially like the defenseman losses. I feel like they can make do for the time being, just because they do have a lot of defensemen. Like they still have Cam Fowler, obviously. Brandon Montour, Josh Manson, Bieksa. They've got guys who can play, and I think the big thing, it's going to be Ryan Kessler missing because, like you said, Ryan Kessler he's not the Ryan Kessler he was, but he's still a good player, no doubt. And it kind of screws with their center depth because now all of a sudden, if you are Randy Carlisle, you have to say, okay, do we move Antoine Vermette up in the lineup? Do we play Ricard Raquel at center? It creates a lot of questions. And let's say you play Ricard Raquel at center. I don't think the center version of Ricard Raquel scores 32 goals.
No, I don't think so either.
And it creates, it creates a lot of problems. It's one of those, I mean, we are Sharks fans, so it's not unfortunate for us, but it creates an unfortunate situation where the injury of one player screws everything up, which is kind of what the Sharks saw in Thomas Hertl's rookie season when he was hurt, and then all of a sudden you're moving Pavelski around, you're moving Burns around, you're moving Marleau and Couture and James Shepherd around. It's it's like one injury kind of just screws with the whole operation. But I do think if they can, tough it out with the injuries they have, if they get 100% healthy, look out.
It was good of James Shepherd to leave the team to save us from the Reapers, though. I've always admired him for that.
Poor James Shepherd.
Yeah, poor James Shepherd. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I wrote a division preview on Puck Pros, and it's not going to be out for a while yet. It's just one of those things where I knew it was going to be super huge, so I finished it early. And so to not give too much away, but I feel like here's the big questions for me is and it's been brought up in the chat too. Is Corey Perry, going to continue to regress? Because that obviously, like, it's amazing how good the Ducks did despite how not great they were when you look at the numbers. They won draws and they won games, but like they did it really. I mean, this is a team that really did it by committee. Corey Perry was not good last year. So I'm interested to see if that continues. The other thing, Randy Carlisle comes back in, and I feel like Randy Carlisle is one of these diminishing returns coaches, where he comes in and he's good at the start and it just kind of goes downhill from there. And Getzlaf and Perry ran him out of the room before. So I'm really kind of curious if, how long is his shelf life in, and when is Emilio Estevez going to replace him?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think for one, Charlie Conway's way too old to play in the NHL at this point.
Oh, damn, you're probably right.
So you're kind of stuck there. I mean, maybe Adam Banks, he still has the speed, but no, to be serious though, like, I don't know. I mean, he's an interesting situation because you think about it on one hand, this isn't the Corey Perry who was a 40 goal scorer and a 70-point guy, right? But
no.
At the same time, he put up 50 plus points again this year. And obviously with the money he's making, you want more out of him. But I think
he didn't even have 20 goals though.
And that's the thing is you want goals out of him.
Goals. You need goals out of him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think if you're the Ducks, considering the trajectory he's been on the last 3 or 4 years, I think if he can stay, I think like worst case scenario, he needs to stay hovering around exactly where he's been the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. Obviously you want him to find his game. And I think, as much criticism as he gets, I think Ryan Getzlaf is one of the most underrated playmakers in the league. And you can look at his assist totals and that will back me up 1,000%. And even in these last 2 years where he's had a down year, he still put up 70 points. And I just think at this point, you can't really afford to screw with the Lions. I think you need to keep Perry and Getzlaf together.
Yeah.
And I guess just hope that Corey Perry can find his game again. Because, if not, that's a long contract. Mm-hmm. You have Ricard Raquel, who's really only flourished as a winger. You have Patrick Eves, who had a good year this year, but there's no guarantee that he's going to score 30 again.
Right.
And beyond that, besides, Nick Ritchie, you don't really have any NHL-ready prospects.
No, I mean, and their prospect, and their prospect pool again isn't terrible. Just some notable names in it. You got Sam Steele, Max Jones, Nick Ritchie, Brandon Montour. I mean, you could still kind of in the gray area there. I'd consider him graduated at this point, and American hero Troy Terry.
I will say, some of those prospects that they have, it's just not even fair that they got them. Like, no. Sam Steele fell into their lap.
Yep.
Max Jones fell into their lap.
Yep.
And it sucks that it happens to a division rival, like you want those guys to fall into the Sharks' lap, but I don't know. The Ducks, don't get me wrong, I think the Ducks have a good team. I think the Ducks are going to win the Pacific Division again, but I think this current team I don't think it has a very long shelf life.
But I still, here's the worst thing. Saying all of that, they're still my team to win the Pacific.
They're my team to go to the Western Conference Final. So, it's
damn. Well, I mean,
they need
how many times now? It's getting
exactly.
Silly,
right? I think this year's needs to be a big year for them. I don't think Corey Perry's going to get traded, but I mean, you can only go so many years with the same players getting the same.
Like, are the Ducks are the Ducks right now the Sharks 2-3 years ago with better defensemen?
Yes, because we saw that year that the year the Sharks got embarrassed by the LA Kings in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last season that Marleau got 30 goals. And since then, he went on a downward trajectory. Thornton is kind of a different story, and you could make this comparable between Thornton and Ryan Getzlaf. But I don't know. It's just with the type of style that Ryan Getzlaf and Ryan Kessler and Corey Perry all play, like, that's not a style of play that keeps you going until you're 40.
Right.
And I don't know. I think they are beneficial at having a young goalie and a young defensive core, but that forward core, it looks good on paper, and they could probably rack up a lot of goals. But at the same time, if some things go wrong, all of a sudden that forward core could be no better than the Sharks the year they missed the playoffs.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree. I mean, I feel like they have a couple of years left where I think they're going to be fine. And look at, they've drafted so well too that they keep finding players to plug in that have worked out better than, say, the Sharks have in that respect. But like, I feel like it's only a matter of time until they start sliding with the Sharks and the Kings as these other teams continue to rise. Like, Calgary is getting better. So we think, Edmonton, I still think Edmonton's good. I maybe, are they the same team they were last year? I don't know. It's hard because it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Arizona's getting better. How much better? I'm not sure, but they're better. And they're trending in the right direction. Vegas is bad for a reason. Vancouver's Vancouver. They're a mess. They're going to take time to undo the mess that they're in. I don't know. I mean, so I guess I guess we should do now, since we've done our division previews. Obviously, we talk about the Sharks every week, so we're not going to dedicate a segment to the Sharks and just repeat the same thing we've said on the last 6 shows. So I guess my question is how, just after, with everything that we've learned from, doing all these things and just news in the NHL, how do you have the division looking by the end, and how wrong will we be when it's over? Obviously, all totally wrong, because that's why preseason predictions are dumb.
So do you want me to rattle them off in order, or do you want to go from bottom to top and alternate like we did for the Atlantic?
Oh, we're going to do that for the Metro too in a minute. Yeah, let's go. Let's go from the bottom. We'll rattle off the bottom.
Okay. So for me, in 8th place, I have the Vancouver Canucks.
I have the Vancouver Canucks as well.
Because Vancouver, they're just bad. And they've got some good pieces. Don't get me wrong. I think Thatcher Demko absolutely will be a starting goalie. They've got a surprisingly good crop of young defensemen. As most people should know by now, I'm a huge fan of Brock Besser. I think they've got a handful of good young players. It's just a matter of finding the pieces to come in and be around those guys. I'll be honest, as high as we both were on Nikolai Goldobin in his,
I don't think Goldobin makes the team out of camp.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is, as high as we were on him, I don't think he makes the team out of the camp, and I don't think he survives in the NHL without having a responsible center on his line.
Yeah, I don't think Goldobin's going to make the team out of camp, to be completely honest. And that's not a slight against Goldobin. It just, when you look at if you look at where the other teams have signed, like the players that they've signed, some of these weird signings that they made, what was it, Vanek, right? Was the last one? Like, doesn't Vanek kind of steal Goldobin's spot?
Well, and that's the thing is, like, Vancouver has all these really good young players, Goldobin, Besser, Virtanen even. They just drafted this past year. It was Pettersson, right, that they drafted?
Yep.
Yeah, him. They've got a lot of good young players, but then, they still have the Sedins, Thomas Vanek, Louis Eriksson. Like, you got to move on from these players at some point. And I feel like you could make the argument about the Sharks not ripping off the Band-Aid, but Vancouver is even more guilty of not ripping off the Band-Aid than the Sharks.
Well, Vancouver was in complete denial. They sucked until last year when they finally did moves that looked like they were actually rebuilding.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas, like, the Sharks will still come out and tell you that they're a Stanley Cup contender. To this day, Doug Wilson will come out and tell you the Sharks are a Stanley Cup contender with $8 million of cap space. Of course they are. Here's why I have Vancouver in 8th. I agree with you. They have a lot of good players. The problem is I don't think they have enough players that are ready right now. Yeah, they have some good defensemen, and I think Thatcher Demko, I agree, Thatcher Demko is probably going to be a good goalie for them, but he's not ready yet. He's not going to be their goalie this year. It's going to be Jacob Markstrom, and I can't remember the other gentleman. It's going to be, it's not going to be, Demko's going to be in Utica still. Yeah, they have Ulevi. I don't know if Ulevi makes the team out of camp. I don't know. Like, I feel like, yeah, they have pieces, but they're not ready. Their defense and their goaltending is worse than Vegas. That's where I give the edge to Vegas in this race, because while I think that they're still better team up front, you need defense, and the Canucks do not have it, and I have no faith in Jacob Markstrom at this point.
Well, nobody does, because he hasn't done anything to instill any faith. He hasn't had a positive, look on him since he was in Florida when he was their goalie of the future. And look how quick they gave up on him to bring back somebody that they had, 10 years ago.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. And so, like, if you told me to pick a goalie tomorrow, and I think if we went in the chat, I'm sure everyone would be like, do you pick Marc-Andre Fleury or do you pick Jacob Markstrom? I think, as much as I think that Marc-Andre Fleury's a league average goalie, to be completely honest, I still take Fleury every day and twice on Sunday. And I would love to find the person who tells me they would take Jacob Markstrom over Marc-Andre Fleury. One, so I could laugh at them to their face, and two, just so I know that these people exist.
Right.
So who do you have in 7?
7th, I have the Vegas Golden Knights.
I do as well. I feel like, again, defense, goaltending better. They're just better than Vancouver. I think they're going to be bad, but they're not going to be as bad as Vancouver.
Yeah, agreed. They've got a really good goalie. They've got a lot of defensemen. Their forward core, it's a tad underwhelming.
It's okay.
And that's the thing. It's okay, but it's not, it's not as good as some of the teams at the top. And that's where I think Vegas is in a better position than Vancouver, because Vegas, raided the cupboards of every NHL team, and Vegas was able to pry Alex Tuck, who I really like. Mm-hmm. They drafted Cody Glass, who I thought was NHL ready. I guess not, but
I don't think you see. Here's the thing. I don't think they want to be good. And look, if you're going to be a disaster, don't put your kids in that.
Right.
Like that's what happened in Edmonton. They threw these kids into this just disaster, and then finally they grew a brain with Draisaitl and sent them back to junior before they screwed that up too.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to be that team that just completely that culture of losing that, everyone always talks about. Who do you have in 6?
I have the Arizona, or no, I don't. I have the Los Angeles Kings.
I have the Arizona Coyotes. My reasoning here is I just feel like, I like Arizona. I like what they've done, but I feel like when it comes down, I mean, you could really take like the middle four teams here and kind of just put them in any order, I feel at this point. But I feel like Arizona, in order for them to be successful, they need the most to go right. And they, if a couple of things go wrong, it puts them behind the eight ball more significantly than say a team like LA, San Jose, Calgary.
Yeah, I have Los Angeles just because I don't know.
Because
I
we
mean,
hate the Kings.
yes, we do hate the Kings. I mean, they still have Dustin Brown. They still have a flat out just atrocious bottom six. And yes, Kopitar and Toffoli most likely will bounce back, but there's no guarantee that Tanner Pearson matches what he did. There's no guarantee that Jeff Carter matches what he did. There's no guarantee that Jonathan Quick is still an elite goalie. Plus, when you consider that they had 4 NHL defensemen when the expansion draft started, and then they lost Braden McNabb, and now they have 3 NHL defensemen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm almost certain that I will be wrong in this pick, but at the same time, I have to stick with them as number 6 just because I think they've fallen so hard from grace, and they've fallen harder than the other teams who have slipped.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I just feel like, I feel like, I just feel like more like nothing not very much has to go right for them to be okay.
Right.
Like that's kind of my feeling. I feel like, you get a bounce back season by Toffoli and Kopitar and they're fine.
Yeah, I still think even with those guys getting a bounce back year, I still think their defense isn't good enough to get them further than the first round.
Team number 4.
In wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th place.
Oh, sorry.
I have the Arizona Coyotes,
and I have the Kings. We kind of beat this to death. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, I think the Coyotes have a young team. I think they're gonna have that high early on in the season. I think they're gonna start off really strong. They're young guys. I think are gonna come to play. They have Hjalmarsson, they have Antti Ranta, they have Derek Stepan, but ultimately, I think the young guys are going to hit the wall and they're going to fall back down to earth.
What did you think about the Demaris for McGinn trade?
I think
it makes it with Chikrin out.
I think it makes sense. That's a very good point. With Chikrin being out, you need a defenseman, and Demers is a top 4 defenseman. And let's face it, Jamie McGinn was you're probably going to lose Jamie McGinn on waivers with how many young forwards you have.
Yeah, so the fact that it nets you Jason Demers, I feel like that's a good deal.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was either going to be sent to the AHL or he was going to be a healthy scratch, and with that contract, you can't afford either of those.
Right. So team number 4, I have the San Jose Sharks.
I have the San Jose Sharks because they have not gotten worse than the crappy teams, but they have not gotten better than the good teams, and I will leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that, and I'm gonna just put that Calgary game with where Mike Smith got lit up. We're gonna forget that because it's a preseason game, and you shouldn't put too much stock into that. I just feel like Calgary got better and the Sharks didn't. I mean, I don't think. I mean, they are a little worse at this point. I think you have to find somebody. You have to find by committee. You can't find somebody. You have to find by committee someone to replace Marlowe's offense. And there's a lot of question marks if they're going to find that or not when the NHL games start with real rosters and it matters.
Well, and here's a point that I've made many times over is, the Sharks need to find somebody or a group of somebodies. They need to find a group of somebody to replace Marlowe's goals, but you need to remember too that even with Marlowe's 27 goals, the goal scoring was not enough to get them past the first round.
Well, they were broken too.
That too.
The team in third place, I believe we both have. I think our lists are identical from this point on. I believe we both have the Calgary Flames in third.
Yep.
I just feel like they've improved. They have a good defense. I'm not sold on Mike Smith as a starting goalie anymore. Like, I feel like his best days were 5 years ago, but I feel like he's good enough that on that team with that defense, he should be serviceable. I don't think I think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're going to make a deep run. I think that they could easily run into a team like the Ducks again and just get completely spanked. But I feel like I feel like the Flames are on the rise. They're doing the right things, and this team has to click at some point, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the addition of Travis Hamonic has given them one of the best top fours in the league, and I will fight anybody who combats me on that. I think, and you even go beyond that. Michael Stone, very underrated defenseman,
and you add Travis Hamonic.
Yeah, exactly. And Mike Smith, I think, will be serviceable with that defense in front of him. And then their forwards, Johnny Gaudreau is still Johnny Gaudreau. Same with Sean Monahan. Same with Matt Tkachuk. Same with, Backlund.
Yeah, they just need more from Sam Bennett.
If we were doing this in a NBC Sports article format, he would be our X factor.
Yes. What else you got here? I guess number 2, I have the Oilers. You have the Oilers. I don't really think we have to explain it. There's this guy named Connor McDavid who could carry the whole team on his back, and as long as he stays healthy, they're fine.
Yep, agreed.
As long as Cam Talbot doesn't have to play 400,000 games this year. But I think if you really want like a really more in-depth on the Oilers, go back, listen to last week's show. We had Trin Potrats on. Great show we had. We also had Zach on last show too. So if you haven't listened to last show, shame on you. Go check it out, especially if you want to hear more on the Oilers, because Trin just gave us a boatload of knowledge. And it was really awesome of him to come on. And then number 1, we both have the Ducks because they're the Ducks still. And they, their injuries aside, this is a team that basically pulled it together by midseason and they just ran away. And they're completely capable of that again.
Yeah, especially with their young defense, John Gibson coming around. And like I said, that forward core, I think, is going to do some damage this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to speed us through here this time. We're just going to go through our names if you have anything to add as you go through them. Rob asked us to do a Metro prediction. So we'll do that. I'll let you go through yours first. If you have anything to throw in there, just throw it in there, and then I'll do the same, and then we will get the hell out of here.
Sure. So... number 1 in the division, it's not even a question. Pittsburgh Penguins, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, probably going to go at least to the Eastern Conference Final. Still good. That's all I'm going to say. Ryan Reeves, he's the key.
He's the key to everything.
Columbus, good lineup, but they were playing over their heads last year, so I think they fall down to second. Number 3 is the Washington Capitals. Obviously still a good team, but when you lose Carl Alsner, Justin Williams, Marcus Johansson, you're going to do worse. Yep. Carolina Hurricanes, I think Slavin and Pesci are only going to get better. They have a real starting goalie in Scott Darling.
Yes, they do.
Aho is going to get better. Lindholm is good. Rask is good. Jeff Skinner is good. I think they're on the rise. New York Rangers, they lost Ranta, they lost Stepan, they lost, I believe, Kevin Klein, who's a really good defenseman. And this is a year after they lost arguably their best player in Derek Brassard. And, Rick Nash is still Rick Nash, not good. Mika Zibanejad had a good year, needs to keep improving. Jimmy VC, overrated, so,
right.
That's why I have them 5. Philadelphia Flyers should be a good team. They should be in the top 4, but something about that team, they just can't get it going. And I think if Philadelphia misses the playoffs this year, I think that Claude Giroux gets traded or at least loses the C.
Ooh.
And you can screenshot that, foreseen it, pin it, do whatever you want. New Jersey Devils in 7th because Mirko Mueller had 2 preseason goals, or has 2 preseason goals, and if he's all you're relying on, you're in trouble. And number 8 is the Brooklyn/New York Islanders because the ice in their arena sucks and John Tavares doesn't have any good teammates.
Love it. He has Jordan Eberle now. What are you talking about?
Oh, well, yes. Jordan Eberle, who could forget?
Okay. Here's what I have. I'm going to go from bottom to top. So in the bottom, I have New Jersey. I feel like New Jersey, there's a lot of things that I like in New Jersey. I don't think Corey Schneider is going to be, I don't think it's possible that Corey Schneider could be as bad as he was last year this year. So I feel like they could be okay. They've got a lot going on. There's just not a lot there that I like. Development wise, they need time. I have the Islanders in 7th. I feel like the Islanders, man, this team, I know they got Jordan Eberle, but they lost Hamonic. Like, I don't know what to think of the Islanders. Like, this is a team that I want to do well. Like, my heart wants them to do well. This division is such a gong show. The Flyers, I like the Flyers. Brian Elliott in goal. I don't know. That didn't work great for Calgary last year for the start of the season anyway. It's such a goalie graveyard, and I don't know what Brian Elliott's got himself into. Next up, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. I like the Hurricanes. I want the Hurricanes to do well. There's a lot of quietly nice things going on there. Again, brutal division. Could they get past the Rangers? Yeah, it's possible. I just feel like the Rangers, even though they seem to keep hemorrhaging pieces, they always seem to do okay. And I think a lot of that is credit to Alain Vigneault. So I have the Rangers as the kind of the 4th seed. In the 3rd seed, I have the Blue Jackets. I feel like the Blue Jackets, again, like you said, they played way over their head. And yeah, I like the Blue Jackets, but I just feel like they have to regress. They just can't be that team again next year. I have the Washington Capitals in 2nd, maybe a little too high, but as you said, they lost pieces. The Metro is so hard because these teams are so closely packed together. You could just shuffle them up in a bag and throw it on the table and just kind of put it in any order, and you could sound smart, I think. And I have the Penguins in 1st. I feel like the Penguins are basically still the same team they were last year. They didn't lose any significant pieces. And I think a lot of the teams that they're competing with either played over their heads or got worse in the case of the Blue Jackets and the Capitals. So Pittsburgh could totally take the division, I think. I mean, they might not, because they'll just kind of coast in and then just kill everyone like they did the last 2 years. But I think that they could be the team, because we're closet Penguins fans. All right.
Always.
I am I don't know. Listen, guys, thanks for he did actually. We had a chat before, and he basically he threatened to walk. I'm not gonna lie. So
I made it very clear, if he didn't pick the Penguins, I was quitting.
Yeah. So I think that's a show. And I appreciate everyone on a Friday night coming on to listen to us chat. Mostly just kind of, it was one of those nights where you guys did most of the work, to be completely honest, and we just kind of made a show out of it. So as always, we thank you for that. I'm going to give a plug to our friends at Circling the Cup, who are going to do a show. If you are not all Sharks podcasted out in about half an hour, Circling the Cup's going to do their show. So be sure to check that out. Other than that, I did articles on Puck Pros today, both Sharks related, finally Sharks related. And so read them because I put a lot of work into them, especially because they're the Sharks and because I like the hits. And if you want to have like all the shows on one stream, we need the hits. Aside from that, so check those articles out. You can find my Twitter or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Aside from that, we'll be back next week. Hopefully we'll have some more Sharks stuff to talk about. We'll find people that actually watch hockey, not me, who just sits here and watches the little ticker go down. Hockey Shark, final thoughts.
Final thought is right as we finished talking about the Ducks, I turned on the Ducks game, and my guy, Ricard Raquel, scored. Now they're tied with the LA Kings 1-1.
Ooh. Are they in China too?
No, they're in. I think the LA Kings split the squad. So
okay.
So these LA Kings are in Orange County, and then the other LA Kings are going to be in Beijing playing the Canucks at 12:30 a.m. Pacific. You can follow me on Twitter at hockey_jerk. We're almost there, guys. Regular season right around the corner. Regular season hot takes are coming back. Pittsburgh Penguins hot takes are coming back.
All the hot takes. Like
hot
today
takes.
I actually had a pretty good hot take show today. You know, I said like, what has Larry Robinson done for us? Damn it. Like that's probably considered a hot take at this point. Yeah, we had a good show. I appreciate this. Again, at Ian Blogs Hockey on the Twitter machine. Follow Kevin, who hopefully will be able to rejoin us soon, at Kevin Lacey 22. Aside from that, guys, have a good night. Keep your eyes out for articles that, make me money. Thanks. Bye.